If you haven't checked out the first video, check out the first video. I got softly cross about the poisonous, please forgive the parlance, malarkey that Dumbo put in my tiny and defenseless brain. More importantly, at the end of the video, I asked people to make videos with me, lessons animation taught us. I mean, I'm just a single sack of existential and entirely exhausted meat space, same as you. Together, well, then we're something great. When we started the whole lessons animation taught us thing, I didn't think that the response would be as big or as meaningful as it has been. I expected 1 2-minute video explaining that a Goofy movie lines up perfectly with chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water. What up, 90s kids? So we asked for submissions so that we could learn how different animation hits different people. You can't illustrate an accurate picture without allowing everyone their turn to speak in an attempt to understand their experience. There's a playlist on the main Filmjoy page and I strongly urge you to check it out. Cinema Winds pulled us inside out and pulled us back lovingly together again. Maggie Mae Fish offered us a brilliant piece on Rugrats and empathy. Innuendo Studios gave us the fascinating Lady Eboshi is Wrong. And What's Good About That had an amazing piece on Adventure Time and the nature of endings. There's 35 awesome videos in the playlist and I'm sure we've missed more than a few. Twitter was not a great tool for catching all of these and I wanna do better this time. I want to make this more meaningful and I haven't quite figured out what shape that's gonna take just yet. If you have a piece we missed the first time around, send us an email to LATU@filmjoy.tv to let us know so we can add it to the playlist in the meantime. Please let us know if you're intending to make a piece or want to help us figure out what kind of shape this takes on going forward. It's really something special to hear all the stories of how animation affected all of you, and I want to respect that. It paints a picture that none of us could paint by ourselves. And if that isn't art in and of itself, I'll eat a Twinkie. I'll be honest with you, I was gonna eat the Twinkie anyway. In the meantime, we'll be updating the playlist with anything new that comes out of this LATU. I think we can build something awesome because animation taught us all kinds of lessons. Having said that, let me tell you a story that is a great deal more connected than it would appear to be on the surface. I want to talk about some bigger stuff this time. We begin in 2004. I'm 22. To be young again. Pixar has taken over some amount of young me's brain because I've dreamed of CG animation going mainstream since Reboot, a television show that predates Toy Story by a year. Hashtag tell Enzo's story, you cowards. When I walked out of the theater in 2004, it felt different than the usual Pixar movie, taking the idealized art style of the 1950s superhero and telling a story about obliterating the artifice of that very same suburban idealization. This is what heroes look like. Just kidding, no it isn't. It visually apotheosizes the 1950s while also telling you that the 1950s were a filthy gosh darn lie. You cannot go back to that which was never really there in the first place. But it sure paints a pretty picture, don't it? Imagine you're 22-year-old me. I'm apeshit for The Iron Giant, a movie that left a vulnerable spot in my soul, and the writer and director of that movie worked with Pixar and made another movie? A thing they hadn't yet done, bringing in a third party from the outside world and giving them access to that which us mere mortals could only ever dream. Brad Bird made a movie he wanted to make. This is true to such a degree that Brad walked into computer animation with a team of people familiar with animation of the mostly two-dimensional variety, having come from Iron Giant. They imagined, wrote, and helped design a film that wasn't remotely feasible in 3D animation up to that point. This film changed Pixar. Brad Bird's a genius, but I can't stress how much of this film wasn't possible before an entire studio solved an absurd number of problems that allowed this maniacal dream to soar. Imagine for a moment that humans are unbelievably hard to animate and realize why Pixar movies generally star toys, bugs, monsters, fish, cars, and Jesus Christ! It is an understandable limitation and not an accident that Pixar didn't make movies where the predominant speaking parts were lard husk meat sacks with lips and shit. Sorry, humans. A huge number of artists, engineers, and designers solved and then proceeded to skyrocket on the fuselage of a list of miracles so vast, it is worth taking a moment to appreciate the magnitude of Pixar's contribution to why this movie happened at all.
I mean, it's whoever thought about making movies like this were out of their minds.
You are all giants. Before 2004, CG movies with humans in them looked like Jimmy Neutron. And I ain't bagging on the J-Newt, but I am hopefully illustrating a noticeable leap in technology made on the grounds of story. Brad Bird wrote a film not knowing what was impossible in CG. And Pixar moved mountains to give dexterous consciousness to that story. Okay, now we can talk about Brad, my sweet summer prince. After The Iron Giant, Brad got... Okay, I'm sorry to stopping it, but did you know that Brad was one of the writers on Batteries Not Included? Sorry for the detour, but I find that fact too charmingly alarming not to share. Okay, Brad had a rough go there after The Iron Giant, a masterpiece that failed to find an audience to the tune of $23 million in the first 3 months of its release. To illustrate this, in its opening weekend, The Iron Giant opened behind The Sixth Sense, The Blair Witch Project, Runaway Bride, The Thomas Crown Affair, Deep Blue Sea, Mystery Men, Inspector Gadget, and The Haunting. It opened in 9th place. And for most of those movies, this wasn't even their opening weekend. Today, The Iron Giant has rightfully taken its place as one of the masterpieces of modern animation. It is important to understand the magnitude of what that must have felt like when it happened. The feeling of being trapped, that no one understands you, self-isolation appears to be the only solution to your problems when it is in fact the sole culprit. Or an intense desire to prove yourself when the world is telling you not to. I don't need to tell you that The Incredibles is about something very personal. Every character has powers that relate directly to their biggest internalized weaknesses. Dash can't ever be himself. Violet struggles to be seen. Helen wants to protect her kids by forcing them to ignore their own identities and who they are. And Bob is a toxic dick. Bob doesn't realize he's strong enough to rebuild a life he has since let crumble. And the family starts to realize that alone they aren't capable of being who they really are, but together they can be. Hell of a thing, The Incredibles. And it actually connects directly with our second story, merely diverging from a different point in time. If I may. Don Bluth joined Disney in 1955. He believed in it. The first thing he worked on was 1959's Sleeping Beauty. It was short-lived as he went off to pursue religion for a stretch. He left the studio Walt was working at and came back to a studio in the 1970s haunted by his death. The Rescuers was the first film he worked on, and then came The Fox and the Hound, a film he thought was artistically bankrupt and not in line with his understanding of Walt's vision for what the meaning of animation as a business and an art form could be. In 1979, a team of animators disillusioned with what Disney animation had become during the 1970s, led by Don Bluth, left the company to make their own animated films. One of the animators who stayed at Disney to finish The Fox and the Hound was none other than Brad Bird. This episode's like Pulp Fiction, man. It's all out of order. I think it's important to remember how much Disney owned this space and for how long they owned it. Don Bluth and co. managed to do something that was important on a scale that no other studio had previously really done. Before this, we had Fritz the Cat, Lord of the Rings, Space Battleship Yamato, Watership Down. This movie challenged Disney, which might not be seen like a big deal because nowadays that's normal. Zip it, minions. Back then, if they pulled this off, it would mean that Disney would have meaningful competition in the animation space. Meaningful competition means better stuff. Don Bluth leaving Disney makes Disney better because now you need to deliver more impactful art. Bluth and producers budgeted $5.7 million and gave themselves 30 months to produce this film. The closest Disney relative is 1981's There's That Film Again, The Fox and the Hound, which cost around $12 million and was in development as far back as 1977. They were gonna out Disney for cheaper and in less time. And they did. How many companies can you name that went toe-to-toe with the mouse, succeeded so completely that Disney itself was bettered? Almost like the third part of this episode is a direct result of that competition. Don Bluth made Disney better. On to the rats. Based on the book Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH, Frisbee renamed in this movie for fear that Whammo makers of Frisbee would sue them, so meet Miss Brisbee. Don Bluth and Gary Goldman left Disney in 1979. They had a movie finished in 1982. The audacity of that. The Secret of NIMH is a miracle. It has shockingly low stakes. A single mother whose husband was murdered in a lab has a mortally sick child and an impossible journey to save him. Also, that rat dude gets his lungs slashed in half lengthwise, which is pretty intense. There are some clever as hell tricks in there too. They rotoscoped a lot. It was a great way to save time on incredibly time-consuming things to animate, like the scene where they ride the lantern down to the underground. I wanted to rewind the clock to show you the origin of what has become a storied career in the animation business apart from Disney. Secret of NIMH, An American Tale, Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Thumbelina, Anastasia, Titan AE. These were all awesome movies, but they were also meaningful competition that forced Disney to step up their game.
Please, there must be another way.
There is no other way.
Everyone tells Mrs. Brisby what she can and can't do, and Miss Brisby don't give a fuck. This film grabs you in a way that not a lot of animated films can. An absolutely wild swing, without enough time, without enough money, and the will to prove that they deserve a seat at the table. All of this had mystique as a child. Don Bluth had a run that lasted through the year 2000. I miss that kind of counterculture. It did what it was supposed to do. It was dangerous. You've probably seen a movie tossed around in multiple pieces now. The directors of that piece, The Fox and the Hound, Richard Rich and Ted Berman, went on at Disney to take on a troubled project that had been floating around with different writers and directors at the company since 1971. The Black Cauldron, some of whom were still involved. This was very much a too many cooks type situation. In the heads of many, this would be the first animated Disney film to try and attain a PG rating. I think it was a confused time at the studio. While rushing for a 1984 release, Disney did a test screening where the majority of the kids in the audience had to leave the theater because it was overwhelmingly intense for them. Can't imagine why. I have a soft spot for The Black Cauldron, but I am purposely illustrating how hard tone can be. Don believed in Walt Disney so much that he started his own company to keep that dream alive. It was okay to take chances. You could learn a hell of a lot from Don Bluth. We started at the end, so now we'll end in the middle. Am I doing Tarantino right, or what? 1994. I'm 12, and it is important to look at The Lion King as it stood at the time in the storied history of Disney animation. Lion King is the tallest tree in a forest of exceptionally tall trees. We will be speaking about the run of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King 100 years from now. Nobody goes on a streak like Disney goes on a streak. They're still doing it, Pixar, Marvel. But let's get back to 12-year-old me, this guy. I saw The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin in theaters. Those are beloved films that need no introduction from me. But we have to recontextualize some stuff. Lion King wasn't always the prettiest duckling. It's almost like there's a book about that. So 12-year-old me refused to see The Lion King. Talking animal movie? Do I look unrefined? I'm 12. A man. The sentiment at Disney wasn't much different. The company was trying to move on from the talking animal movie. Oliver and Company was their last talking animal movie and it made $74 million. To illustrate, Oliver and Company made less money than Crocodile Dundee 2. Also, Crocodile Dundee 2 made more money than Die Hard, don't yell at me. 1988 was a weird year. And no one dared mention Poor Fox and the Hound anymore. Talking animals were out and the fish ladies were in. But back to The Lion King. So we went to the Dollar Theater and witnessed the 30-second animated Disney feature. It grabbed me from frame one. It's interesting to look at the lessons from Disney's perspective though. We like to think of them as the talking animal people. Their most recognizable symbol, after all, is a talking animal. Then, when they shifted to human stories in 1989 with the release of The Little Mermaid, then came Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. It changed their assumptions about the business. Hey, that's like a reverse of the Incredibles one. They added animals instead of subtracting them. The Lion King was the peak of success for traditional Disney animation, who after this would deal with swelling costs and diminishing returns, leading to their temporary cease of operations, and later their final one. Worldwide, The Lion King made $968 million. To illustrate that point, The Little Mermaid only made $211 million worldwide. I cannot stress how much The Lion King was expected to fail and ended up not only being the largest success of Disney 2D animation period. Aladdin, a titan, only made $504 million worldwide. The Lion King is a worthy peak in the history of animated films. Due to the nature of the business, The Lion King will never be topped, though it will certainly be outgrossed by its CG reinterpretation. The Lion King was the first ever Disney animated feature created without source material, so they added some Hamlet because people thought the sky was falling and Pocahontas was gonna need to make up a ton of money to make up for the failure that was going to be The Lion King. I can't even imagine what that pressure felt like to the people working on this modern masterpiece. Scar wasn't even originally intended to be Mufasa's brother, but was changed to give them more of a Hamlet kind of feel. Disney wouldn't go on to make Chicken Little until 2005. Boom. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
But did you know?
The CEO of Walt Disney Corp at the time and Wonderful World of Disney host Michael Eisner, when viewing The Circle of Life opening upon rough completion, told the animation team how vastly they had just screwed up because there was no way the rest of the film would be as good as this opening musical number. Oh, we're having crow for dinner tonight? It's easy to forget that it was this crippled, mangy baby goose once upon a time. Disney started making this movie in 1988. Here is the original 7-page treatment of King of the Kalahari that would eventually become the film we know today. Here's an interesting excerpt from an Entertainment Weekly article from 1994. In the 4 years it took 600 artists and technicians to bring The Lion King to the screen, at an estimated cost of $40 million, though insiders say it cost more, there's nary a shot, a line of dialogue, or a musical moment in Simba's journey to kingship that wasn't built, torn out, rebuilt, tinkered with, fixed again, and maybe fixed a few times more. In fact, in a Hollywood dominated by star-driven mega-budget projects rushed from script to screen for a short-term killing, who wrote this? Long-view meticulousness is Disney's magic formula. No other production unit expends quite the same methodical effort to craft crowd-pleasing movies. If you want to know why The Lion King is The Lion King, read what people thought about it before it came out. Here's another excerpt. There are always changes, but never so many as on this one, says Andreas Deha, supervising animator of Regicidal Villain Scar. One day, I just ran away. I said, I can't deal with this. When you know what scenes are going in the movie and what aren't, you tell me and I'll come back and animate for you. I've never done anything like that before. They remade it over and over every day for 6 years. There's no secret here, no magic bullet. The Lion King is what it is because of maniacal perfectionism. Especially from Jeffrey Katzenberg, but I don't have time to go down that rabbit hole or give him credit for what absolutely would not fly in 2019. The reality is this movie is great because it really sucked making it. When Michael Eisner tells you the rest of the film could never possibly live up to the intro song, you make him eat those words. Animal style, baby! As we reach the end of Act 3, I've told you 3 wildly all over the place stories to illustrate that Disney didn't just get to where it is overnight. They're one of the biggest businesses on the planet, but you have to build that brick by brick, movie by movie. And sometimes someone comes in and sets a bar so high that you have no choice but to try and build that which would not seem possible otherwise. Sometimes the competition hits a streak that pushes you to be better and hit a higher bar than you would normally. And sometimes you're so scared of failure that you work until your fingers are going to fall off, and then you move the pencil to the other hand. Disney might be the biggest kid on the block, but if you look closely at how they got there, it makes a lot more sense. Almost like there's a ton of lessons in there.